Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
We're on the record.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it is February 28, 2023. We are in room 206 of Town Hall. We begin with a public hearing, and that is on the coastal site plan review number 359A, flood damage prevention application, number 413-A, landfilling and regrading application number 511-A of William and Elizabeth Jones to Contentment Island Road. The proposal is to elevate and construct additions to the existing residence, remove the garage and construct a new detached garage, a new swimming pool and terrace, relocate and expand the driveway area, and perform related site development activities within regulated areas, including filling and regrading of the property and installation of stormwater management. The 1.08 plus or minus acre subject property is located on the northwest side of Contentment Island Road, approximately 40 feet south of its intersection with Tokenique Beach Drive, and is shown as Assessor's Map number 67 as lot number 65 in the R1 zone. Gentlemen, who would like to tee this up?
I'll take this.
Please.
So this application's been submitted in conformance with Section 810 Coastal Site Plan Review, Section 820 Flood Damage Prevention Regulations, and Section 850 Landfilling Regrading Application Regulations of the Town of Darien. Some of you, and it may just be George, that recalls that the Commission saw this application
I do indeed.
for To Contentment Island back in the fall of 2021. The Commission made a decision on this property on October 5th, 2021, following a variance that was granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals earlier in July of 2021. That variance was to construct additions and alterations to the existing residence, including lifting the house above the flood zone in conformance with Section 820 of the regulations and FEMA regulations. Since that time, the applicant and property owner applied for zoning and building permits to construct the improvements on the property and began work as far as demolishing portions of the existing structure and regrading associated with the Commission's approval back in 2021. Our department, the zoning enforcement officer in 2022, in August of 2022, issued a stop work order on the project because certain aspects of the alterations to the existing residence were not conforming to the ZBA approval, and certain regrading work on the southern portion of the property was not in conformance with what was originally approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission back in 2021. So as part of that stop work order, the applicant and property owner at that time was required to resubmit to the Zoning Board of Appeals for additional consideration relative to alterations to the structure that differed from ZBA's original approval. And from the Planning and Zoning Commission side, we required that they restore the grade to what the Commission previously approved back in 2021. As part of the work that they did with the initial zoning and building permits, they added an additional couple feet of fill on the southern portion of the property, and that's why we had them back that out and restore the grade and have them come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight to reconsider the project relative to the coastal review, flood damage prevention, and the regrading on the property. So prior to them coming to Planning and Zoning Commission tonight, back in November, just a couple months ago, they also went back before the Zoning Board of Appeals for amendments to the variance that was originally granted regarding the lifting of the house and additional volume outside of the building envelope on the property. All of the work is within the AE 13 flood zone, and the changes that they're presenting tonight are essentially a reconfiguration of the house addition and alterations, the relocation of the pool and drainage systems. There's a new detached garage. The grading on the property, on the southern portion of the property, is significantly different than what the commission approved back in 2021, and the applicant's representative will describe that in detail tonight. And they've also worked out an agreement with the Contentment Island Association to place a catch basin on the private roadway, Contentment Island Road, which will now drain water from the road to Scotts Cove. Previously, there was just a chain link fence on the property boundary between Contentment Island Road and their property, so water would drain directly onto the Joneses' property. Now there's an impermeable solid retaining wall in that location where the chain link fence was, and that's the reason for the new catch basin on Contentment Island Road. The application tonight was referred to Ty and Bond. Joe Canis submitted review comments dated February 24th. It was also referred to the health department. The health department positively endorsed this application on the 6th of February. We also referred the application to the Tokenique Association, and they positively endorsed the application on the 7th of this month. You'll also notice that in front of you this evening, we just received comment from one of the neighboring property owners, Stephen and Susan Gorey, with respect to concerns about flooding on the private roadway and the addition of fill on the southern portion of the property. The applicant's representative, Al Tibbetts, is here this evening with the rest of his team to explain the application to us and to answer your questions.
Good, thank you. Attorney Tibbetts, good evening, sir.
Good evening. Al Tibbetts, Barbara Tibbetts. And Bill Jones is here too. But
Mr. Jones, welcome.
Fred, I think, just made my presentation.
All right, have a seat.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that Bill wanted me to point out to you all is that he is deed restricting the property so that a large house can never be built on that property. Owns the house up on the rise overlooking this house, and he's cleared a view from his old house to this house, and he's going to do a view easement and a deed restriction. So the house is just about half the size of the former house, half the number of bathrooms, half the number of bedrooms. We've gone over this in great detail, and the Ty and Bond memorandum, I don't know if you all had a chance to read it, but in a way, if I take the Glory letter and put it next to the Ty and Bond review, it answers pretty much all of the Liguori questions. I would say that this, I've lived my entire life in Darien, and I've gone to Tokenique Club since 1961. And that road floods all the time from just a high tide. So it will help the drainage that the Jones are proposing, or are going to install will help, but it won't help in high tide situations. This is definitely a wet area. I know and you can see that. So the pool, there was a question with Ty and Bond, was there going to be a pathway or patio at the, a pathway leading to the pool and a patio? And there's not going to be a pathway.
Okay, you have to take the microphone with you if you want to talk away from the, thank you. Oh, you're all right.
This is just going to be leading to the pool. And, I'm sorry, this is leading to the pool, and this is just going to be grass. There's not going to be a path or patio. I don't know, one of you guys want to address the fill?
Sure.
Yeah.
State your name for the record. For the
I'm-
record,
I'm
Andy
sorry.
Soumelides,
Thank-
Soumelides.
Thank you.
I'm a professional engineer, state of Connecticut, a principal at Atlantic out of Westport. We're the site civil engineers on this project. I'm just going to run through all of Joe's comments quickly just to address them. One of them was to beef up the silt fence. We have no issues with that, adding, stake hay bales behind it, wattles. We're fine with that condition of approval. The Town Darien DCIA form, I think you just missed it. It was at the end of our drainage report. Sometimes we submit them separately, but we submitted that originally with the original approval. But that, we'll certainly submit that. The path and patio, Al just touched on. Elevation 8, I think is on our plans. Maybe Joe just missed it. I can point to it.
What is the significance of elevation 8?
It's not. I think he just was wondering where it was on the plans,
okay.
in terms of, what all that grading is that's happening on that south side, which is one of the things we're here for. I think the fill associated with the south side is just about 2 feet of fill. In a VE zone, which we're not, none of that area is within the VE zone. The FEMA rule of thumb is you could do up to 2 feet of filling without having to do further engineered computations for flooding or, pushing water onto your neighbor's property. In an AE zone, it's different. And as depicted on here, this will have no impacts to any of our neighbors, any of the filling and the such. The filling is occurring where the tennis court was. The tennis court basically acted as a detention pond for the road. And what we did was put in fill in that area to kind of level off that area of the property, and so we could have positive pitch from the other side of the wall on the property towards Scotts Cove. So we didn't have any more ponding on the property. And to alleviate some of the flooding that happens on the road, we added a catch basin. There used to be a catch basin there, but it really didn't function. All the water just ran through the chain link fence around the tennis court and onto the property. So the wall now is as Fred mentioned earlier, is a solid, impermeable structure there. Water will drain to this catch basin and connect to existing piping and infrastructure that already existed. The catch basin that previously existed was kind of silted up and didn't function as it was, but the piping was there.
Tennis court acted like a catch basin? Was there actually a catch basin underneath that tennis court?
There was. So the catch basin was put in after by the previous owners as the tennis court filled up and went into this catch basin and drained out.
So that is still up there?
That is no longer there.
That is no longer
It's
there.
going to be replaced with a standard, DOT style catch basin in the road now.
And that would be immediately prior to that wood stone wall to stop the water? It'll kind of be at that area?
Correct. The catch basin, the previous catch basin was right here.
Yep.
Right on the property line. The new catch basin's right here, closest to the curb line. This is the low spot of this area of the road. It's, and that's where they put the catch basin before. And there's existing piping that already comes out. We're going to tie in a new pipe to that existing piping, so it drains.
And it comes out onto the neighbor's property?
Yeah, it's, well, the neighbor's property, this is, it doesn't show at all, but the mean high water, this is like a little inlet
Yep,
here in
right.
between the two properties.
Yeah.
And it drains into here
Yeah,
now.
okay. And the letter in question, the Legories are where? Across
Laboratories
the
are
street?
here.
That's
Yeah.
about, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And, you know, we're not saying we're gonna stop the flooding with this catch basin, right? During a high tide, everything floods down there. So the intent of the catch basin is on normal storm events, it'll act and work properly. On higher storm events, it'll subside when the high tides go down and the storm goes away. But it will alleviate the ponding and their concerns there by putting in this catch basin that doesn't exist today.
And the
And-
capacity of that new basin versus the old basin?
Is more than double.
Double, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And then the last two comments were in relation to the flood vents. One was to just confirm that the flood vents are properly sized, which they are. And we'll depict them on our, construction drawing set prior to issuance of a building permit. I think they're already on the drawings. But we'll make sure we'll highlight them for the garage and for the main house.
For the catch basin, since it's on the road, is it Tokeneek's problem to maintain it? Because you said the old one was filled with sediment and wasn't really functioning or filled with silt. So the new one, just 3 feet away, is going to do the same thing, right?
Well,
Chime in on the maintenance.
so,
We do have a copy of it.
Wait, I'm
William
sorry.
Jones.
Thank you very much.
So the previous basin was on our property, put in by a previous owner for the exclusive use of draining the tennis court. And over a period of years, it filled up with silt, didn't do what it was meant to do. But it was never built to drain the road. So the association got used to the fact that they had a tennis court to drain into because the tennis court became disused, hadn't disused now for probably 10 years or so. So it acted as a catch basin, which obviously wasn't going to continue. And so the catch basin is going to be entirely on the association, the private association's property. They're responsible for keeping that clean. The piping is all on our property, and we're putting in a, what do you call it? A valve, which allow the water to flow out but not back in. Right now, the valve is all rusted. It's an old valve, and at high tide, it would come up the pipe and fill up the basin and go onto the road. So that's all being improved at our expense. We told the association, private roads, we said we'd build it at our expense as a gift to the association. We're not going to give them an easement on our property, but we're going to make sure that the pipes are kept clean, and if the valve gets stuck, we'll fix it. But there was no easement before, there's no easement now. It is a drainage system that's being built at our expense for the exclusive drainage of the road, not for our property. So that's a gift to the association. As far as the flooding is concerned, most of the flooding during high tides occurs at the northern end of the property. It backs up against the bridge, which acts as a dam. And actually, the water doesn't come from Scotts Cove, it comes in what they call the gut, or what do they call it? The tidal basin before the Pound Gut. So it backs up against that bridge and then comes into the property there. It comes across the Liguori's property, who have written this letter to you. The Liguori's property is a pie-shaped piece of property like this with Tokeneek. Contempt Island Road goes this way on one side, Tokeneek Drive goes down on the other side of it, and they have built, the Liguori's haven't built, but in the past there was a man-made pond dug in that flood zone, and that's filled with water. And it has got a pipe that only allows water in, not out. So at low tide, that stays full. So obviously at flood time, it adds immeasurably to the flooding of the area. That's their contribution to the situation. These are the people that are worried about the flooding of the road. But there's really nothing that can be done. I mean, we're building the house up 2 feet higher than what we're required to. And you know, when at real flooding, we're going to step out into water. I mean, it's just the way it is. not only at really high tides, but at storm times. And there's nothing we can do on our property to solve that. We've been living in Darien, looking out over this property now for over 30 years, 35 years, and we know when it floods, how it floods. And there's, even when the tennis court was there being used as a drainage ditch, it would flood that whole area. And there's really no answer to it. It's just what we have to live with if we want to live down there in that part of Tokenique. So there it is, that's the drainage.
What of the catch basin that is near the old driveway, I guess? There is a
Yeah.
second catch basin. Is
That's
that
the
all?
association's catch basin, small, and the pipe from that is below the level of high tide in the gut. That actually drains into the gut, what they call pound gut. So at high tide, it doesn't drain. They could put a drain in if they wanted to. They could take that drain and put it along what the old Runkenhidge Road. They own access along end of our property between our property and Pound Gut. If they put a nice big pipe there that ended up in front of the dam, it would help drain that whole area much quicker. It won't keep the flooding, but it would drain at ebb tide much quicker. I suggested they do that and look at other things to do as well. I think, without getting ahead of myself, I think all of the residents in Tokenique are going to approach the board and ask them to do a holistic approach to this whole area. Ours is just a small contribution to it.
Well, the pipes from that catch basin we're now talking about go into your property, right?
They go into a swale. I'll call it a swale. It's sort of a marshy depression
Yeah.
where at really high tides it fills up, but most of the time it's empty, and it's a wetland. So there's a pipe there already, and that's the pipe that the original system that drained the tennis court used to drain into, but it doesn't drain now because of the deterioration of the valve.
So, but there looks like a pipe that goes into the Coltech system. Is that operative?
The Coltech's the new design.
That's part of the new design.
Can you walk us through the new design?
Sure.
Of the retention system?
Sure.
You have to bring the mic.
Thank you.
So the detention system, the Coltex 100s, the very shallow ones, it's obviously high groundwater table there. It takes all the roof leaders, there's a new catch basin, it captures all the new driveway, and all that gets piped underground to this detention system, which has been signed for the water quality law.
Okay. So the, just so I'm clear, there is an existing catch basin. Is this a new location for the catch basin near the driveway?
This catch basin here
Yeah.
is new.
It is.
Correct.
Where's the existing one?
There's an existing one right out here in the road.
Oh, okay, CD, there you
Yeah,
go.
there's one here in the road, I think that's the one we were just discussing that goes out to the gut.
Okay, so that doesn't show any piping, so we don't know where that goes, but probably, well, you think it goes down the road to
It
Pound
goes
Gut?
out this way, went out like here, and then this one went out this way, correct. We actually, Land Tech was hired by the Tokenique Association about 5 years ago to study the area for drainage and improving the drainage down there. There's not really a good answer down there. As you can see, the roads are at elevation 5, 6. You know, when you get in a flooding event, you're gonna get inundated with water, so you're not gonna solve or fix the flooding down there. The task that we came up with was to really they make these duckbill outlets on some of the drainage pipes that go out into various sections of Tokenique and outfit them so water doesn't come in during the flood event and then come bubbling out of the catch basin. But again, when there's a high tide and a large storm event, you have to wait till both subside and then it'll allow the area to drain out. But again, there's no really great solution based on elevations of everything down there.
Other questions on that topic? All right. Yep.
and my other questions are about the building. So I think I'm good for that.
Okay. You're expecting Mr. Tibbetts to go on?
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
What was your question about the building?
From when I was following all the building plans, it looked like there was a delay in the construction in that the quality of the walls were inferior and that they had hay in them. And that when I was evaluating the existing conditions, old ZBA approved plan,
Yeah.
new ZBA approved plan, what's gonna be considered new walls, what's gonna be amended walls. I was curious when I saw that restoration happening on the first floor, but not the second floor. And it
Yeah.
led me to ask the questions of, what is the interior wall? Is it the foundation walls, or is it the above grade walls?
It was the above-grade walls, and when the house was lifted, some of the walls fell off,
Okay,
fell down. So we had to go, that's one of the main reasons we went back to the ZBA, was to get approval for the construction of new walls.
okay, and that's only on the first floor?
Yeah, it's got a substantial second floor, and it, from the front of the house,
And which begs the question of the sequencing of how this is gonna work. Are you constructing your new construction and then raising the house? Or are you raising the house and these walls can maintain the integrity to be raised, and then renovation work is beginning?
No, I don't know if you want to address this or not, but the house is going to be raised, and then the walls are going to be constructed.
Okay,
Did I have that right? House gets raised,
and the
Walls are
integrity of these
constructed.
walls will maintain that process?
they're all new walls.
That's my question. Are you making the walls new before you get raise the house?
No,
or
we
is the
have to
house in the existing inferior quality of these walls being raised?
We
And
have to
that's
raise the house and construct, and we're adding to the foundation, and then we're building the walls.
Yeah. And raising the existing house, the quality of that house as is will maintain that process, will survive
Yeah.
that raising?
It's actually already been raised, and we lowered it back down. Go ahead.
Tim DeBartolomeo at Sound Engineering Associates. I'm the structural engineer.
Could you spell your last name for me?
It's DeBartolomeo. Okay, so process is that a lot of these walls have been taken down already, and they will be rebuilt prior to it being lifted back up. There's
It'll be rebuilt prior
there's
to
currently,
what?
yeah, there's currently a lot of temporary shoring in that structure itself, and
Yep.
it's a little bit deceiving, where the second floor is really at the roof eave, and
Okay.
the second floor is it's like a cape where there's a lot of
Yep.
dormers.
Yep, yep.
Okay, so you may have a gable end wall, but that's the extent of the second floor walls, that kind of stuff. So it is being, so we're basically lifting the house up from the eaves up, okay? Because everything else down below is
Garbage.
yeah, is no good. There's a couple of walls that are being saved that are concrete block.
Okay,
Okay.
that explains how that process is
Yeah.
going to work. I was just shaking my head on
No,
when I was
I
reading
understand.
that.
I understand. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more
Anything-
questions?
Mr. Netter.
The new catch basin that's going in the road, I think the testimony was that drains to Scott's Cove,
Yes.
but it looks like it's actually drains out to the neighbor's property.
You have to look at, sorry.
There's an actual marsh in between the two properties in here.
Okay.
So you can see mean high water, which is like elevation 3.3, is right here, where this pipe's coming out. So this whole area is like a marsh in between. And their property is significantly higher than even ours. So it's not draining onto their property. It's gonna go into this like, basically a little inlet, and then it goes out to the cove.
And is there any water quality treatment before it gets there?
There is nothing for this, no.
Jeremy, should there be?
Well, as Andy said, they're treating the water coming off the house.
Yep.
This one isn't for the house, though. This one is just, this
For
is
the
just the
road.
road. There's
For the
nothing. It's
road
just
water, yeah.
a hole in the ground and a pipe out to that marsh, right?
Right, we were just replacing something that used to exist, so we just kind of replaced it in kind.
Is that,
Well, it doesn't exist now.
do they need to do?
It's not functioning.
I think they took it out.
Oh, was it gone?
Yeah.
No, it's gone.
Yeah.
Do they need to treat the water, Jeremy?
It goes into the sand.
I don't have a good answer for that. Andy, do you have an answer on how you could treat it?
Yeah, I mean, we could do some type of inline type of treatment, but, in order, you know, I don't think the intent was to put any kind of Coltech or detention or anything like that on the property. They do make some type of inline water quality treatment, structures that you kind of put in, you know, in line with the piping. We could look at that option. We didn't really broach that with the owners or with the association. It certainly adds cost. It certainly, you know, goes back to the drawing board with the association of, you know, the homeowner flipping the bill on this to begin with. So, we'll have, you know, we can consider it. We can take a look at it. But
Is that an EPA thing?
No.
No.
Well, what's interesting is the state of Connecticut DEP, we referred it to them, as Fred mentioned, and I don't think they mentioned that in their comments.
yeah, Joe didn't mention it from Ty and Bond. Deep
So-
didn't mention it. It's under Deep's purview when you're getting beyond elevation 5.4. None of this is, because again, there's existing infrastructure there, existing piping that we're just reconnecting to. If we were to do this all new, then yes, this would have to go before DEP, and go get a state permit as well.
And if you were doing it all new, would it require a water quality?
I don't know what the state would say on that. It's a good question.
In general terms, I can tell you what I've seen since I've been sitting here is that, you know, when we're emptying into the sound, we try and slow the water flow, we try and let it temperature cool or, you know, and collect as much sediment as we can.
Mhm.
So we're not contributing to the pollution of Long Island Sound.
Yeah, so this catch basin will have a 2-foot sump in it.
Okay.
So at least you're getting that sediment containment with deep sump. But there's nothing more to it than that.
I'll make one more comment.
If you could come up
This-
to the podium, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
The drainage, what's going to be drained through this catch basin is just a very small part of the water that moves during flood time. I mean, it comes across 2 roads, it goes across another property, and it floods back into the tidal, what they call the tidal pool, and some of it flows back into Scotts Cove. Actually, most of it flows back into the tidal, what's called the tidal pool. Our little catch basin, although it's now going from a little one to a more industrial one, it's not meant to solve this problem. It's not going to solve the problem of water treatment. There's no water treatment down there. It comes up, it goes across these properties, and it goes back down into the marsh on both sides of the road. To put a water treatment on our property it wouldn't move the needle at all, unless the association wants to get involved in doing some major work of water treatment on that whole area. And they're not planning on doing that. I was on the board for 10 years, and they're not planning on doing that at all. And the neighbors to our south, whose property was raised, you know, it was approved to be raised, is much higher than ours. And they have a road, you know, they have an impermeable stone wall along the road with no drainage at all. So it's funny that this property is received all this attention, but I understand why. But everything down along Contentment Island Road just drains into the marsh. There's no treatment. There never has been a treatment, never been a question of treatment, and there wasn't ever treatment on the little drain that was there that was built for the tennis court. So,
Yeah.
We're
No,
not solving that problem.
just to be clear, we're not talking about like a water treatment system, like you're making, turning it into
a large
drinking
plant
water.
with stacks.
It's, you know, you're talking about just some mechanisms that are part of the drain pipe that slow the flow of the water. allow the temperature to get closer to ambient temperature if it's a hot day, hot water on the road, things like that to protect the natural habitat. So we're not talking about a significant water treatment system. It's really just some things that are designed to, improve the quality of.
But
what's-
99% of the water will be going
I
around this
I
wayfront.
totally, yeah, I understand the area, I understand the hydrology of the area, I was just curious about that one thing.
I noticed that Mr. Jones didn't spell his name for you.
It's okay, I
Nice.
figured it out.
Okay.
So the plan is to keep that pipe flowing, though, that you'll maintain that pipe from that new catch basin?
Yes.
So that as there will be sediment, there will be, whatever, the road treatment will get in there. But as a routine matter, that'll be maintained.
I think that the catch basin is going to be maintained by the Tokenique Association.
Okay,
And then the piping is going to be maintained by the Jones.
that's fine.
And there was reference to a maintenance agreement or a maintenance schedule,
Plan?
and I don't recall seeing one. Did I miss that? Was that part of our package?
It's not part of our
No,
submission.
it's not part of the.
Andy, you didn't do one as part of the stormwater report?
Yeah,
It's in the stormwater report.
There is
Yes.
one.
That was-
That's for the Coltex.
That's for the maintenance of the Coltech,
Correct.
not for this
Okay.
storm
Right.
drain. So if this
Okay.
thing fills up after 5 years, then it's just,
The association.
No, but the pipe,
it's on your.
All the
property.
piping and all of the stuff on our property is part of that O&M report. That's
Okay.
part of the drainage report,
so
correct?
both the pipe leading to this new catch basin and
And-
the Caltex for water quality
Correct.
on the north side lot are, but of course, the catch basin would not be because it's not on your property.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
But without a specific plan, we'll incorporate some condition in the resolution by which that will be maintained on an annual basis at least, right?
The pipe.
Yeah.
So I have
So
a
if there are
question.
recommendations that you would like to earmark for our consideration, now would be the time. Just saying.
Just saying.
Speaking,
Mr. Balgatch.
So if I read this correctly, it looks like the house structure in total is being decreased by about half.
Yes.
Is that correct? Can
That's
you go
correct.
over just where it's, in relation to the, I guess, the prior plans versus now and where the decrease is totally coming from? And that includes the garage in the decrease.
Yes, but the end of the house,
Used to be, where exactly?
basically, this is the garage isn't it in the same area that the end of the house used to be?
Right, so my question is, how do you go down by half?
Oh,
I get it, you're taking that cutout in between the house and the garage,
Yeah.
but that didn't look like enough to get it down by half. Certainly, you're reducing the size of the footprint of the house.
I don't have the existing, probably
Or are
existing
you
here.
talking about the
Yeah.
actual footprint?
No, the
just,
coverage.
describe to them what the house.
I think, Al, the question though isn't necessarily, it's overall
The
coverage.
coverage, the footprint of the house.
Our coverage is going way down.
Correct.
Yeah, that's, I'm wondering
And
how.
he's asking what,
Are you talking about, well, partly because there's a tennis court.
right, the tennis court counts for coverage.
The tennis court counts for coverage.
yeah.
Right. So you're going from
tennis court.
21.24% coverage to 11.74.
Correct. And it's all,
But is there a pool on the property now?
no,
The pool doesn't count back towards that?
no.
Some of the patio and coping does, right?
The pool would count towards coverage.
Right, so that's my question, is you're swapping a court for a pool, that doesn't change anything.
Look at the size of that tennis
No,
court.
Yeah, I guess the court
This is the
is-
tennis court, and that's the pool.
I guess so.
Fit like 6, 7 pools in the tennis court area.
Okay. It's mostly from ripping that tennis court up.
All right, any other questions? Anything else, Attorney Dibbitts?
No, sir.
All right. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I do want to be sure that the letter from the Liguoris, get into the record. I'm not going to take the time to read it, but I think just make sure it's there. Okay,
All right.
then I would entertain a motion to close this. Thank you, Mr. Nutter. A second from Ms. Barsanti. All in favor, please say aye, or raise your hand, or both. That's closed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You know where the tennis court beam coverage came from?
Do tell.
Penny Glassmeyer lived next door, in Worcester. She put up a tennis court and was out there at 8 or 7:30 in the morning every day
Ah,
and woke up in
too
Worcester.
annoyed?
So she got the tennis court beam coverage.
Okay, that's fair. Good history. Nice to have an old geezer from the town every now and then. Pardon
Are we
me?
gonna need, Jeremy and.
Is that not our easel?
Are we gonna need to add
No,
something
no.
on this about like extra monitoring, considering the historical record with this property? As part of the condition of approval?
Yeah, I guess the
Like
commission
a-
will have to deliberate. Certainly, there's been a lot of work. If you've been out to the site, you've seen
Yeah.
that a lot of progress has been made on trees, grading,
Right,
cetera.
I noticed
The
that,
drainage
it's like
change.
half done.
not half the house is built.
Okay.
Do you know what happened with that?
Woody.
Well, as Fred acknowledged, they were not building it in accordance with the plan.
Yeah, they just decided to not do that. Seems random, right?
While we're on the record, let me move on to the next
Yeah, I guess we'll talk later.
public hearing matter, which is a flood damage prevention application number 437, land filling and regrading application number 545 of Geddes and Julia Johnson, Free Canoe Trail. Proposal to construct a new two-story addition to the east side of the existing residence and south side of the detached garage, to construct a new retaining wall and steps with associated regrading of the property, and to perform related site development activities within a regulated area. The 1.01 plus or minus acres subject property is located on the south side of Canoe Trail at the southwestern corner formed by its intersection with Arrowhead Way, and is shown on Assessor's Map number 70 as lot number 51 in the R1 residential zone. Mr. Donate, or?
The project's been designed in conformance with section 820 and 850 of the Darien zoning regulations for flood damage and landfilling regrading. The property and proposed improvements are located in the AE 13 flood zone. Currently, there is a detached garage associated with the principal structure on the property. The proposal is to add a new two-story addition to that detached garage and then create a connection on the second story to the existing residence. Currently, the flood zone clips the corner of the detached garage, and by connecting the attached garage to the principal structure, that essentially pulls the entire structure into the flood zone. However, a determination has been made that the improvements do not rise to the level of a substantial improvement, which would be 50% or more of the value of the structure itself. And from what we understand of the situation, the construction of the wall and addition of fill around the southern portion of the garage and existing principal structure would raise the grade such that in the future the property owner would have the ability to go before FEMA and bring the entire structure out of the flood zone. The project is currently in front of the Environmental Protection Commission. There are wetlands on the property. They'll be going before the EPC tomorrow for consideration with a pending decision on that likely later in March or beginning of April. Craig Flaherty is here tonight to represent the applicant, and will present the application and answer any questions you may have.
Terrific. Good evening, Mr. Flaherty.
Good evening.
Thank you for coordinating the presentation with Mr. Dunn. That's very helpful. Very good.
I have value after. Good evening. My name is Craig Flaherty. I'm a professional engineer licensed in the state of Connecticut, principal and senior engineer with Redness and Mead, land use consulting company with offices in Stamford and Wilton. I am joined tonight by the architect, Chris Lavinia, who is sitting in the audience here representing Geddes and Julia Johnson. So I am going to approach the exhibits. It's easier to do it this way. So we'll start with a photo of the house, really kind of from Arrowhead front yard. This is the area we're talking about. This is the two-car garage that we're talking about, and this is the area in front of the house that we're looking to create just a grass terrace. So similarly, this is the front door of the house. This is looking at the one-story garage. You can see how the land slopes away from the house. That's the area they're looking to flatten out and create that grass terrace up there with a small wall. The upper left picture here, this is a simplified look at the existing coverage, Green's Lawn, and is the structure. You can see not much changes between left and right. Small addition, making the garage larger to the south, but then also adding a second story above, and that second story is what connects to the primary dwelling, and then you can see the new wall built in front. So on plan view, we talked about the flood elevation is elevation 13. The existing garage floor and proposed garage floor with no basement is elevation 14.3. So the garage is already a foot above flood, so everything we're doing to the garage applies. We are only penetrating from the garage into the main house at the second floor, call it 10 feet above the flood or so. But since they're now linked in one structure, the fact that the existing residence has a basement means that it wouldn't otherwise comply with the flood zone requirement. First floor of the residence is up at 16.9, well above the flood. So we're at this weird fringe case. Doesn't matter, we comply with the 50% substantial improvement rules. There's also a FEMA rule about lateral additions, which this complies with. So if we cared, we could perhaps question whether or not we even needed to comply with the 50% rule. But as Fred mentioned, this minor amount of fill we're proposing, this wall here is 29 inches tall. So 29 inches, yeah. 29 inches tall. Once that wall is built, this flood line basically runs on the face of the wall, no longer touches the building. Building's not in the flood zone. And so we don't have to do the flood zone standards. But anyway, we're complying. Everything about the addition complies, and it's less than a substantial improvement. And then the second thing we're doing is the fill. Here, I'll show you the pictures of the house. We brought the pretty pictures. So this is that flat view from the front. This and this is the addition. So you can kind of see it here. Right here. And then there's that second floor bridge to the main house. The last thing we're doing is creating that grass terrace. So normally when you're looking at excavation and fill permits, you're concerned about how fill or excavation might impact an adjacent neighbor. You can see that this is nowhere near an adjacent neighbor and it's minor in nature. Right now, all the water sheds in this direction towards this intermittent water course in the front yard. It will continue to do that exact same thing. Increase in impervious coverage is minimal, a couple hundred square feet. It's really related to this long linear wall and these black stone steps. So the water quality improvement is to, one, remove substantial portions of lawn from the property and revegetate. This is an incredibly robust and fulsome landscape plan. The owners were interested in really defining a natural edge to the property that doesn't exist today. And so that's more than offset in terms of water quality benefit for water running off the site. But these are what we call disconnected impervious surface, and there's plenty of vegetation for that water to run over on its way out. And there are no downstream properties. Once it gets under Arrowhead Way, it's off to the south. Application has been reviewed by Joe Canis. He had one comment related to septic erosion controls, which was revised and new drawings resubmitted. Received a very thorough review from Environmental Protection Commission staff, Rick Telemelli, and we've responded to all of his questions and requests for additional information. He's reissued his staff report, and the last issue on his staff report was how frequently are we going to, or when exactly are we going to mow the no-mow areas? And the answer is once in the fall, once in the spring, and we'll work that out with EPC when we see them tomorrow night.
And the EPC hearing tomorrow, their decision will be what?
So they have a three-step process. Your first meeting before them, which we had a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
they accept the application, you're a brief presentation, give you some brief feedback, we then get the staff report, which is pretty thorough. We respond to the staff report, we go back to them tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is kind of our, let's look at all the issues that were raised in the staff report and how you address them, a little more fulsome presentation. If they're happy, they then direct staff to prepare a resolution for approval similar to what you do.
Yep.
But we have to wait a whole other month because they don't meet as frequently as you do.
Yep. Yeah.
I think they're actually meeting early. I think they're actually meeting at the end of March, not the beginning of April. So Jeremy can fill in, but normally if they so direct staff to prepare a resolution for approval, that's enough for you guys to take your vote. But we certainly don't need you to take your vote until after EPC takes their vote if you don't want to.
You've received an EPC report dated February 22nd.
Yep.
The EPC decided not to have a public hearing on this matter, which generally gives us an indication that
They're not concerned.
it's
Yeah.
not being, and when you look at the nature of where the development's occurring, it's occurring between an existing garage and an existing house, and the rest is, as Craig referred to it, as a robust landscaping plan to basically, I'll call it, improve the existing intermittent water course that flows through the property. And
Yep.
so I think they've seen that generally, without speaking on behalf of the EPC, but staff has seen that
We can
as.
say we know where it's headed.
But generally, they see it as improvement with little impacts to the wetlands, because here it's a water course that just, right now has lawn right up to it, and in the future it'll have plantings around it and trees and things like that. So more natural, vegetated buffer, it's likely to get a good reception at EPC.
Okay, thank you.
Happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'm good.
I think that landscaping plan's gonna be beautiful.
It's,
It
honestly,
looks like it's gonna really enhance the streetscape through there, it's gonna be very nice.
if we were designing a plan just to get over the hurdle of approvals, it would probably have about a quarter of the plants on it that you see here. This was
It looks
really
beautiful.
owner-driven.
Yeah.
Good for them, good.
The only question I have is for the added weight of the addition above the garage, do you have to touch the slab foundation of the garage at all?
Yeah, there was a reason you
For, obviously a garage isn't meant to bear a lot of load. The walls in it is kind of more of just a shell to protect the cars versus a fully insulated, living space.
Thanks, yes, Chris Lavinia, licensed architect.
I'm sorry, could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Chris Lavinia,
And could you spell your last name, please?
LAVIGNA.
Thank you.
We're bearing on the, there's a deep frost wall on the garage now, and we're bearing with 2 point lows with a long span beam that holds up the roadside side of the new addition with a large LVL beam, and that transfers down to the existing footings there, as well as then the other half of the new addition bears on a new concrete block frost wall. So capacity is there.
You're putting in a new frost wall on the non-road side, right?
Correct, on the new, it's actually a new addition, 6 foot or so. That is the new screen porch
That will go
downstairs.
underneath there, and that's where it'll carry?
That is not there, it's a new.
Yeah, that's what I'm
front,
saying, that's
yeah.
where it'll go.
Yes.
This is the new frost wall.
Yep.
Around the whole foundation, and then you can see the walls there on both the existing frost walls and the new frost walls. And there's a picture in here, that LVL.
I saw the picture of the LVL, I know that one.
Is there a living space over the entire garage or just the proposed addition?
No, sir, it's just the exercise room in the new addition. So it's partially over the existing garage where we have the fire code sheetrock called for.
Okay. Got it.
So this is that's the existing garage. Nothing new above this portion. This is the new portion above the existing garage. This is the new 2-story portion and the entrance into that.
Thank you.
And this is a clear span beam, which puts the point load here and here, but no load
Across it.
The load there and there.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone in the public wish to speak? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to close. Mr. Belgash, Mr. Nutter is seconded. In favor? Right, thank you. Thank you, it is closed.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation and time. Okay. So we can now go into our general meeting. The first item of which is the amendment to the business site plan number 281 and special permit for the Darien Board of Education, the Darien Public Schools at 35 Leroy Avenue, with a request to allow 6 Chevrolet Suburbans to be parked on site as part of the Board of Education transportation use. It's noted 4 vehicles were granted by P&Z in 2016, so they want to add 2 more to it. I understand, I don't think anyone's here to present on that. You guys want to comment?
No,
Go
I
ahead.
spoke to Dr. Adley earlier today, who's at a Board of Education meeting right now, but he did explain the situation, that they use the Chevy Suburbans as alternate forms of student transportation instead of driving a big bus. If you're only driving a handful of kids, Chevy Suburban can probably do the trick. So when they came to the commission about 6 years ago now, 6.5 years ago, the commission, as you can see from the closed letter in your packet, one of their conditions of approval is trying to make this as inconspicuous as possible relative to the nearby neighbors on Old Stone Road and Middlesex Commons. So you can see that Dr. Adley has found a spot which is specifically signed for the Suburbans, and they're looking to add 2 more to the collection that they have and you will use on a daily basis. So it's pretty self-explanatory just to add 2 that are there. I can tell you firsthand that the number of people that work in the building on a day-to-day basis, including visitors, there's always plenty of parking every time I've been there. There's just not, if you compare it to the old use of the Darien Library, the amount of necessary parking and traffic is down 50 to 100%.
Except voting days, and then that's it.
Yeah,
Right. Okay, thank you for that. The only sensitivity I've ever heard of about school transportation vehicles is idling buses, and I don't think this would be in that category. No reason they'd be idling much, so. All right, shall we have a motion to approve the amendment to the site plan as described? Thank you, Ms. Bertanti. A second, Ms. Balgach. Any further comments, discussion? Then, all in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. All right, I got that down. Thank you. The second item in the general meeting for deliberation and possible decision on the flood damage prevention application number 435 of Sean and Mallory Rogers at 23 Crimmins Road. It's a proposal to construct or expand a wood deck and related features in a special flood hazard area, and to perform related site development activities within the regulated areas. I'm sure you recall this deck that is proposed, and I wonder if there are any objections to be raised. Okay,
I saw no typos.
good. Looking at the draft resolution.
good.
Okay,
Moving on.
all right, seeing no reason to belabor this. A motion to approve?
Amy?
Thank you. Amy, a second? Don't fight over it. Mr. Velgach, okay, no further comments, questions, or concerns, then those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That's unanimous, thank you. All right, and we have an amendment of the business site plan, number 202B, special permit mobile, 211 Post Road, Boston Post Road. They wish to install a shed in their existing dumpster enclosure area.
Sure, I can explain it a little bit. Stan
Go ahead.
Gorski's here from Tough Shed, if you have any questions. But good news is Mr. Gorski was able to get to the ARB earlier this evening, and he got a good review with
Is
their
that why we
only,
had their agenda in our packet?
that could be.
Okay, good.
Basically what they want to do, I went out in the field, and basically it's a very large dumpster area. There's a dumpster in there, but they really need more storage. And so rather than throwing things on the ground next to the dumpster, which would be the obvious thing, they said, you know what, a more professional look would be to put a shed in that area, which will be, as you can see, blocked by the existing dumpster screen, and put things, store things in a shed, which looks a little nicer and less cluttery, if you will. So the ARB asked that he turn it 90 degrees so that the roof line matches the roof line of the existing mobile gas station. They talked a little bit about color this evening, and they talked about what colors they wish to see. It's going to be light gray shingles and a dark brown facade. Of course, you're only going to see the top foot or two of the shed because the first 4 to 6 feet will be blocked with the existing dumpster screen. It will be used to store various items that they will be selling, likely selling inside the convenience store. Bottles of water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So because it's a change to the site plan, they're putting something else on the ground. It's something that we had to run by both ARB and planning and zoning. But I think it's a minor amendment to the existing site plan. It does not change any of the activities involved in the gas station, hours of operation, the way they operate, any of their other conditions of approval. It's basically a storage shed.
Very good. And I gathered that however much space the existing dumpsters take, the shed can still fit in addition to the existing dumpster.
Yeah,
Even rotated?
they're gonna have to rotate it 90 degrees.
But like, they might have planned it to fit looking one way, and if they rotate it, then it doesn't fit,
Well, yeah,
Is the shed a square?
it's,
Wait a minute, sorry, could you
Understand,
introduce
please.
yourself for the record, please?
yep, Stan Gorski from Tough Shed,
Could you spell your last name, please?
Gorski.
Thank you.
Yeah, the dimensions are 12 by 14. So we're just gonna have the 14-foot side facing the street. Okay.
Right, and the dumpsters will remain where they are?
Yeah, there's plenty of
Face-
room. Yeah, they're off to the left and the shed's gonna be to the right.
For the
There's
truck.
plenty of space all the way around. And it meets all the setbacks.
Good, okay. And there, the neighbor in the back has a wall. Is there a wall between the properties, or it looks like there's a wall?
Yeah, there's a wall there, yep.
Okay, so that'll be screening a little bit, okay? Okay, anything else, ladies and gentlemen? Then a motion to approve as submitted, Mr. Netter?
One more question, more for Jeremy or Fred. Do they have to submit the exact dimensions of it?
Yes,
Shed?
in
That'll be
the,
part of the building
in the
process?
building permit, in fact, that Stan's already submitted that, is they'll have to get the exact dimensions, and I think it's on one of the specs here, is
Like-
making sure that the dimensions are on it. And I think in the write-up, you would specifically put the dimensions.
Exactly, yep.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll make sure it's clear, it's 12 by 14.
Okay, and the second was by Ms. Barsanti. Any further comments, questions, or? Then in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous, thank you. All right, so we have an I'm sorry?
Me.
Oh,
Mike and Amy.
yeah.
Thank you.
Quiet as a motion.
We do have an opportunity to discuss the, I guess, both of the applications that were submitted tonight for guidance to the staff. So, starting with the Jones application at 2 Contentment Island Road, are there concerns, tips, conditions, et cetera, or anything else that would be added to any resolution?
I guess the only concern I have is we don't want a future planning and zoning commission to see the third round of this application in 2 years from now. So how do we stop that to make sure that this version of it is the final version of it?
Well, my comment would be that we are now aware that it's the second iteration,
Yeah.
so I'm sure they'll know it's a third if that happens.
We need to put-
And I can't imagine they'd want to go through this again.
The applicant knows that we have a close eye on this as well.
Do we need to write that in as a condition, some kind of like, because we had
I think you could stop them.
It's their prerogative, right? They want to keep making applications. They can make applications.
well, just to stop them from doing work that's not approved. Remember when we had that one on not Locust Hill, the one that the guy had to do all the grading in the back of the property, and he was
Great.
using it as a parking lot, and we had the engineer like submit a report monthly and check in on the progress or anything to make sure that it's up to stuff. So we kind of like put a supervisor in there. Do we wanna
Site
do-
monitor.
Site monitor. Do we want to do something like that and make them? Is
Well,
that worth it or?
They were stopped by our zoning enforcement officer, so
think we
the
can rely
system
on that
worked,
again?
apparently. That was noted that they were.
That was Woody, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right
it
around
was,
the tail
it was
end of Woody.
partially Woody, it was, it was partially the zoning enforcement officer, Hervé Hammond, it was partially Jeremy and myself. It was really a multifaceted, there were a number of issues, not only with the structure itself, but with the site work and the regrading that was placed on the property as well.
And it was also, I think neighbors brought it to our attention as well. When they saw the fill going in adjacent to the wall, they're like, wait a minute, that's, 3 feet of fill against the wall was not shown on the plans.
Are these different contractors now?
No, they're the same.
And is that wall in question something that needs to be discussed? That wall, based on that letter, was that something that is
Yeah, it looks like they just built the wall there.
built
Without
without
any-
Yeah, I'm surprised at that.
approval?
Part of it was, part of what's along, and you can see it from the plans, there was a wall there, except where the tennis court was. That was where there was a chain link. And they basically extended the wall pretty
Okay.
much to match the property to the south at number 6.
Okay.
Oh, it does mention, I didn't notice that.
And that wasn't prohibited per se in a prior application?
Per se, it wasn't prohibited, but certainly it wasn't shown on the plans.
So they built the wall. Nobody
They
approved
built
it.
the wall and put, as I said, 2 feet of, 2 feet of
Yeah.
fill, and then we see this, I don't want to say often, but sometimes when you plant a tree, the first thing you would do is dig a hole. In this case, the first thing they did was bring in 3 feet of fill, and so instead of digging the hole, they put the trees. So we do see that occasionally, and that's what occurred here.
Okay. Good on you for seeing it.
I wouldn't have an objection to a site plan owner. I mean, it would probably help you guys out.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what you guys typically do, monthly report or something like that, where you have someone that goes out there, takes a look around. It's a pretty significant project. It's not a.
Well,
it's not- They're not carting in like, a little bit of dirt. I mean, it's a significant project.
Yeah, and either, well, Tim DeBartolomeo is the structural engineer, so he'll certainly have to be out at the site occasionally. And not so much Al, he probably would not.
No, but I mean, they can use one of their existing contractors, but
Yeah,
just have them
or-
report to you guys.
Yeah,
on a pretty
contractor or engineer.
regular- And, yeah.
Oh, all right. Not having to hire an independent monitor.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying somebody who's not the owner submitting reports.
And do we need to have, and I kind of suggested that, was there any, what's Andy's recommendation on maintenance for that drain?
Yeah.
And valve, and/or valve. Because it's one thing for him to stand there and say, yep, the association's gonna take care of that, but nobody from the association was standing there saying, yep, we're signing up for that.
You're definitely not taking care of it.
Was that?
You're definitely not taking care of it.
No, they're leaving.
100%. No chance. I think he's
So,
gonna sit there.
If we're making that as a condition of our approval, that, that
So,
maintenance, that
to offer guidance to the
drainage
Tokenique
will be
Association.
maintained, that pipe will be maintained, and that catch basin will be maintained, and, and the person who's responsible for maintaining it is not an applicant. How does that
But
work?
at least you could say, here's how you would maintain it.
Yeah,
While we
Yeah.
acknowledge
Yeah.
it would not be the owner or the applicant, the engineer who has
And just-
designed it.
Just from a real estate perspective on houses that transfer ownership, I really do believe that any of these drainage maintenance schedules should be filed with the town. So a future homeowner can understand, I'm buying XYZ Main Street, and part of that purchase is an obligation to do this on a
Clean this
yearly
drain out.
basis.
Yeah.
It really, I think, needs to be done.
We are seeing more and more
Yep.
when people are buying.
Yep.
Hey, I understand there's a drainage plan, can I see it, and how do I maintain it? So we're seeing that more and more.
Yep.
So Amy, are you suggesting though a notice to the land records when there's a maintenance?
Yeah,
plan?
I do. I think something that would be captured in a municipal search process.
Right, we
Well,
have
the
those.
drainage
we
plan
do.
would be caught in the municipal search, but a title search wouldn't. So, right, so you could easily buy a piece of property without knowing that there was a drainage plan.
And I would say on the properties that I represent, of buy and sell, I'd say 80% of contracts have a title and a municipal search contingency in them.
Only 80%?
I would say only
It would be
80%.
100,
I'd say
I would think.
20%. Everybody has a title,
Yeah.
but not everybody has a municipal contingency. Not all of them.
I would agree with that. And-
Yeah.
And I think it's actually, with the market doing what it just did, people were blowing through title,
No.
municipal, you guys were backed up. There was a shutdown, I think, was it Stanford? Got completely wiped out. You couldn't do a municipal search.
Oh.
So, yeah, I mean, I think maybe if you did something on the title record, record.
I don't know that it has to be on the title record, but I do think, some of these I don't even think would show up in a municipal search. I don't know.
Oh, I think they would, yeah.
Well,
Well, to the extent that,
the resolution, the zoning resolution
If it's in
by
the
us
resolution.
would
Yeah.
be in the municipal record.
that's why I think it's important for
And
us to
that- and that
put it in our
resolution-
resolutions.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And then what we would do is require notice of a drainage maintenance plan, file that paper in the land records,
Yep,
which would give the
So
title search.
you are doing that?
We are doing
Yeah.
that.
that's-
Give
Yeah.
people, and that's how they come to our office. Hey, I saw there's a
Yeah.
notice that I have
Yeah.
to maintain
I just
something.
think it's a good practice.
So we're getting more and more into that,
Yeah.
because people need to understand when you buy a property,
Yep, yep,
what do I have to do?
yep.
The drainage maintenance plan doesn't include maintenance of that new catch basin.
Right, that would be the
Right.
Tokenique Association.
Right.
So I would like to understand how that works, if we make a resolution and an approval based on that assumption. And
That's a Tokenique issue.
we don't need to worry about that?
Oh, we can worry, but there's nothing we can do about it.
We can't bind Tokenique to maintain it, because they're not
Okay.
the applicant. We could bind the applicant to maintain it, but it's not on their property, so technically they don't have the rights to maintain
In
it.
Tokenique, do they own the road?
They do. So in this
It
case,
isn't-
more likely what's going to happen is the people that live around there will call the
Wait, does
president of the Tokenique
Does
Association.
Tokenique own the road, or do the
Yes.
people own halfway into the road?
I
The
think,
association owns
I
Mostly
think
the
they,
association.
in most parts.
Because I'm next to it, and in my association, we own the roads.
And yours, you own to the half,
Yeah,
the center line.
Where
Here,
are
they,
you?
they own the roads.
in Cedar Gate.
Cedar Gate.
Right
Oh,
next
yeah,
door.
yeah, yeah.
But the president of the Tokenique Association, and then they have one of the roads person, they have a specific office. So needless to say, in
So-
my opinion, there's a lot of communication between the Tokenique residents and the Tokenique Association when there's a problem.
Yeah,
I guess we can say something like we
Okay.
suggest
Yeah.
that they
Okay.
file a maintenance
It'd be a
plan or
matter of
something,
leverage.
Produce one?
they all pay
Well,
big
No,
taxes.
they've got to maintain the stuff that's on their property. So
Right.
they're
The
gonna.
pipe, yeah, the drain,
The pipe and the valve.
yeah.
And the valve, yeah.
But
Yeah.
what we can do is, part of this is send the Tokenique Association a copy of the approval, saying, please find a copy of the approval for the Jones property at 2 Kentucky Island. Please note that includes a new catch basin, which you are,
With an expectation that the association will
Mr. Castello,
maintain.
who's the current head of the Tokenique Association,
Yep.
has been working with
Yeah, yeah.
this group, so he's aware of it.
Okay, good, okay,
All right.
good,
Do you
okay.
care that the pool's in the flood zone or no? I mean,
No, it's still,
It's up to them,
the
right?
pool equipment certainly will
It's
need to
gonna
be
be raised,
elevated.
yeah.
If there's a
Saw
propane
that.
tank that
There
has
is
to
a
heat
propane
it,
tank,
has to
saw
be
that.
properly strapped and designed, separate permits for that, so you're right. And pool.
All right, anything else on Jones? Okay, you have your guidance. Canoe Trail, Ged and Julia Johnson, and so pending the EPC, I certainly didn't hear any pushback from this game.
Nope, I thought it
She's
was
on
great.
that one.
So when you get word that all is well with EPC, or do we already have sufficient?
I think we have a sufficient, because
Okay.
state statutes only require a report.
Okay,
They don't require necessarily a decision.
So if you
Certainly,
get us
we
a
will
resolution.
become aware tomorrow if anything unusual happens.
Because we'll
Okay.
probably approve this before the next meeting, right?
It wouldn't surprise me,
Next
EPC next meets the 29th.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You
2
meet
weeks, 3 weeks, we're
potentially the
still ahead a
7th,
bit.
the 14th, and the 28th. So you have
Yeah.
3 meetings before they meet on the
We'll
29th.
probably approve it.
So,
But the applicant also said that they'd wait if
yeah,
we
so
wanted to wait.
so we'll kind of
Right.
see how it shakes out.
all righty. We took care of the others, so I think we just have approval of minutes of
Yep.
February 14, Valentine's Day. I hope we made a note of that we were here
Yep.
on Valentine's Day. Yeah.
That's right. Somebody's husband was waiting for her.
Well, I mean,
We didn't make it into the
Oh,
minutes,
that's
we heard the comments several times.
Is it Edward or Edgar?
Anthony.
Anthony, oh, sorry.
Not making it into the minutes, I was looking for that.
about
I was looking for it, I was like,
Are you talking
the chairman made a note several times about
Certainly
it
did.
speak through the meeting.
Certainly did.
No, I didn't see any issues with these minutes, they look pretty good.
Good, plenty of resolutions to fill it
Yeah, we
up.
can't change
and,
those.
all right, well, geez, if you're so anxious, then we'll make a motion to approve them. There we go, Ms. Barsanti,
Yep.
Mr. Netter seconded. Any further comments, script, areas, anything? All right, approve, hands up.
Great.
Then
Thank
they
you
are
all.
approved. All right, any other business? We've got time, we could go on. Any other business? No, nobody wants to do.
I'll make a note how much faster this meeting went. with
Well,
the-
I'm just showing how much more information the chairman has than I do, so.
It was just an easy,
No,
It
I'm
wasn't bad.
teasing.
nothing,
I'm just
nothing on
totally.
there was.
Yeah,
I'm
they-
teasing.
Nothing-
they were
nothing-
not
The only
there.
question I had was for Jeremy, do we really have to look at 2 more Suburbans sitting there?
Yeah,
You know,
site
like-
plan.
It's just
I know,
typical,
I know, I just
but
like, it seems like,
pretty mundane stuff.
yeah.
All right, I heard Mr. Nutter move to adjourn, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Balgotch seconded, and we all raised our hand to approve.
Yep.
We're adjourned.
All right,
Quarter
thanks,
seven.
George.
Great.
All right, thank
Next
you all.
meeting,